The invitation to the annual Sullivan family reunion sat on my desk, its elegant gold embossed lettering catching the soft morning light streaming through the towering windows of my Manhattan penthouse. For 15 long years, I'd meticulously maintained a carefully crafted deception, a facade that was now on the verge of crumbling. And, strangely enough, it wasn't even my choice to let it unravel. I picked up my phone, my fingers hesitating as I reread the email that had set this chain of events in motion. Forbes 30 under 40, the new face of digital art, Safia Sullivan's NFT empire, reaches a $3.8 billion valuation. The article was set to be published tomorrow, just 2 days before the family reunion. My carefully constructed world, the one I'd hidden from those closest to me, was about to shatter into a million pieces, and there was absolutely nothing I could do to stop it. Miss Sullivan, my assistant's calm, professional voice came through the intercom, pulling me from my thoughts. Your brother Marcus is on line 1. Again. Of course he was. He'd been calling nonstop since the press release hit the inboxes of every major publication in the country. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and picked up the phone. Hello, Marcus. What the hell, Sophia? He barked, skipping any pretense of pleasantries. I just got a call from Business Insider asking for a comment about my billionaire sister. Care to explain that? I leaned back in my plush leather chair, my eyes drifting to the breathtaking Manhattan skyline stretching out before me. The city sparkled under the morning sun, a silent testament to the empire I'd built. I guess you'll just have to wait for the article. Like everyone else, I replied coolly, a faint smile tugging at my lips. Cut the crap, Sophia, he snapped, his voice sharp with frustration. All these years, you've let us believe you were barely scraping by. Mom and Dad have been worried sick about you. I couldn't help but laugh, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed in the quiet of my office. Worried? Is that what you call it, Marcus? I asked, my tone laced with sarcasm. The constant lectures about getting a real job? The snide comments about how I'm wasting my potential, throwing my life away on childish dreams? They weren't worried, Marcus. They were trying to control me, just like they tried to control you. Silence hung heavy on the other end of the line. Marcus had always been the golden child, the one who followed our parents' carefully laid out path without question. Business school, an MBA, a prestigious job at our father's investment firm. He was the son who never strayed, the one who played by their rules. Just tell me one thing, he said finally, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. How long? How long have you been hiding this? I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, my gaze settling on a private helicopter landing smoothly on a nearby building's helipad. My helicopter, actually one of 3 I owned. Do you remember when I moved into that tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn? I asked, my voice steady. When you all thought I was throwing my life away with my digital art nonsense, as Dad so eloquently put it? He paused, calculating. That was 15 years ago. That's right, I said, a hint of triumph in my tone. Everyone thought I was crazy, abandoning my Ivy League finance degree to doodle on computers, as Dad called it. But what none of you knew was that I'd already sold my first NFT collection for $50,000. 6 months later, I sold another for $200,000. By the time Dad was telling everyone at Christmas dinner that I was going through a phase, I'd already made my first $1 million. I could almost hear Marcus doing the math in his head, his shock palpable through the phone. But you still borrowed money from Mom and Dad for rent, he stammered. You drove that beat-up Honda Panda until last year. I never borrowed money from them, Marcus, I corrected firmly. I asked them to invest in my company. They refused loudly and repeatedly. The Honda? That was a choice, not a necessity. Just like this penthouse was a choice. The private jet, the helicopters, the island, all of it. Choices I made and kept hidden from all of you. Private jet? His voice cracked, disbelief dripping from every syllable. Jesus, Sophia, how rich are you exactly? I smiled, memories of countless family dinners flashing through my mind, dinners where they treated me like the poor, struggling relative, the black sheep who couldn't get her life together. My younger sister, Olivia, always made a point of ostentatiously picking up the check, ensuring everyone knew she was helping her failing artist sister. The Forbes article will say $3.8 billion, I said casually, but that's a conservative estimate. The real number? It's closer to 5. The sound Marcus made was somewhere between a gasp and a choke, a strangled noise that almost made me laugh again. Now, if you'll excuse me, I continued, I have a board meeting to attend. Oh, and Marcus? I'll see you at the family reunion. I'm thinking of making quite an entrance. I hung up before he could respond, my finger lingering on the intercom button. Sarah, I said, is everything set for the reunion? Yes, Miss Sullivan, my assistant replied promptly. The jet is fueled and ready. The car service is arranged to pick up all family members in Rolls-Royces, as you requested. The venue has been updated to the private island, and the NDAs have been prepared for all staff. Perfect, I said, picking up the reunion invitation again, its weight heavy with meaning. For 15 years, I'd played the role they expected of me, the artistic dreamer, the daughter who couldn't handle the real world, the sister who needed constant lectures about financial responsibility. I'd sat through family gatherings where I was pitted, patronized, and dismissed. But not this time. This time, everything would be different. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia, my youngest sister. OMG, Soph, please tell me this Forbes thing is a joke. What's going on? I left it unanswered. Olivia, who never missed an opportunity to flaunt her 6-figure salary at every family gathering. Olivia, who loved to reminisce about how she'd made it while her big sister was still finding herself. Let her stew in her confusion for a little longer. The intercom buzzed again. Miss Sullivan, your parents are both on the line. Tell them I'm in a meeting, I said, checking my watch. And Sarah? Call the helipad. I think I'll take the chopper to the board meeting today. As I gathered my things, my mind drifted back to the day it all began, the day I decided to hide my success from my family. 15 years ago, I sat at our family dinner table, a fresh college graduate, my heart pounding with excitement as I tried to share my vision. Digital art isn't real art, Sophia. My father's voice had boomed across the table, his tone dripping with disdain. And this NFT nonsense? It's a fad, a scam. No one's going to pay real money for pictures on a computer. I was 22, barely out of college, clutching my Ivy League finance degree, the one they'd paid for, the one they expected me to use at my father's firm. Actually, Dad, I'd started, my voice trembling with excitement. I just sold my first collection for. I don't want to hear about your little hobby, he cut me off, his words sharp as a blade. Either you come work for the firm like we planned, or you're on your own. No more support. No more safety net. My mother reached across the table, patting my hand with that condescending smile she'd perfected. Sweetie, we just want what's best for you. You need stability, a real career. I looked around the table at their faces, my father's stern disappointment, my mother's concerned frown, Marcus's smug smile, Olivia's barely concealed disdain. That was the moment I made my choice. I wouldn't tell them about the $50,000 sale. I wouldn't tell them about the 3 galleries clamoring to represent me or the tech companies reaching out about collaborations. I would show them eventually, but not yet. You're right, I said, standing up, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I need to figure this out on my own. 2 weeks later, I moved into the smallest, cheapest studio apartment I could find in Brooklyn. My family assumed I was struggling, living off my savings, too proud to admit defeat. In reality, I was building an empire. That first year was a whirlwind of intensity. I worked 18-hour days, honing my artistic style, diving deep into blockchain technology, forging connections in the crypto art world. My first major collection, Digital Dreams in Binary, sold out in hours, bringing in $1.2 million. I took that money and poured it back into my business, hiring developers, creating new platforms for artists, and innovating in ways the traditional art world couldn't even fathom. But every time I visited home, I drove my old Honda, wore simple clothes, and played the part of the struggling artist they expected. At least let me help with your rent, my mother would offer, her voice heavy with pity, while my father shook his head in silent disappointment. No thanks, Mom, I'd say, forcing a smile. I'm doing fine. And I was more than fine. By the end of that first year, my net worth had hit $10 million. By year 3, it was $100 million. But to my family, I was still just Sophia, the dreamer who couldn't face reality. Now, 15 years later, as I stepped into my private helicopter, the blades humming with quiet power, I thought about how my little deception had spiraled into something far bigger than I'd ever intended. It wasn't just about hiding my success anymore. It was about protecting my vision, my independence, my right to define my own path. In 2 days, everything would change. My phone buzzed again, a message from my father. "We need to talk now." I smiled and turned off the phone. They could wait for the reunion. After 15 years of hearing about my failures, they were about to learn about my success, and I was going to make sure it was a revelation they'd never forget. The Forbes article dropped at exactly 6 a.m. Eastern Time. I was already awake, sipping coffee in my sleek home office, watching the chaos unfold across my multiple screens. Digital art revolutionary. How Safia Sullivan built a multi-billion-dollar empire in secret. The headline was accompanied by a photo I'd carefully chosen for this moment, me standing confidently in front of my most successful NFT collection, wearing an outfit that cost more than Olivia's monthly salary. The article didn't just reveal my wealth, it laid bare every triumph I'd hidden for 15 years. My phone exploded with notifications. First came the family group chat. "Olivia, is this for real? $3.8 billion? Marcus, I tried to warn you all yesterday. Mom, Sophia, please answer your phone. Dad, this must be some kind of mistake. Aunt Patricia, just saw the article. Is our Safia the Sophia Sullivan?" I muted the chat and pulled up my emails. Hundreds of messages flooded in: interview requests from major news outlets, investment opportunities, speaking engagements. But one email caught my eye, from my father's business partner, Albert Chin. "Sophia, I believe we need to discuss potential synergies between Sullivan Investments and your digital art platforms. Your father may have mentioned some concerns, but I assure you, we can be quite flexible." I couldn't help but laugh. 3 years ago, I'd approached Albert's firm about a partnership. He'd personally shown me the door, dismissing my work as internet pictures. Now he wanted synergies? Typical. The intercom buzzed. "Miss Sullivan, your mother is in the lobby." She's quite insistent. I checked the security feed. There was my mother, Alina Sullivan, still perfectly put together in her designer suit, but with an unfamiliar wildness in her eyes as she argued with the security guard. "Let her up," I sighed. It was time to face at least one member of my family. The private elevator opened directly into my penthouse. My mother stepped out and froze, her eyes sweeping over the vast open space, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, the original Basquiat on the wall, a piece that likely cost more than their house. "Sophia," she breathed, her voice unsteady. What is all this?" "This is my home, Mom," I said, pouring her a cup of coffee. "The real one, not the small apartment I keep for family visits." She walked to the window, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "How long have you? How did you?" 15 years, I said, my voice calm but firm. "Since the day Dad told me my digital art would never amount to anything." She turned, her face a mixture of confusion and hurt. "But you struggled." "We saw it, the tiny apartment, the old car, borrowing. Money for rent." "I never borrowed money," I interrupted, my tone sharp. "I asked you and Dad to invest in my company." "That's different." "And everything else, the apartment, the car, that was all just theater." "Theater?" Her voice rose, incredulous. "You've been lying to us for 15 years?" "No, Mom," I said, meeting her gaze. "I just let you see what you wanted to see. You were all so convinced I was failing that you never bothered to look closer." She sank into one of my Italian leather chairs, looking suddenly older, more fragile. "Does anyone else know? In the family?" "No one," I said. "Well, Marcus found out yesterday when the press release went out. I suppose he tried to warn you." She nodded weakly. "He called, but your father was sure it was a mistake. Some other Sophia Sullivan." I walked to my desk and pulled out a file, sliding it across to her. "Here's something that might interest you. The investment opportunity one tried to present to Dad 3 years ago. If he'd invested the $1 million I asked for, his share would be worth roughly $100 million today. Her hands trembled as she took the file. He said you wanted a handout, that you were too proud to admit your art wasn't working out. And you believed him, I said softly. Just like you believed him about my struggling artist life. Tell me, Mom, in 15 years, did any of you ever come to one of my shows? Check out my work? Even Google my name? She couldn't meet my eyes, her silence louder than any words. That's what I thought, I said, turning to the window, looking down at the city I now partially owned. The annual family reunion is in 2 days. I've made some changes to the arrangements. Changes, she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I bought out the entire resort where it was supposed to be held, I said. Too public. Instead, everyone will be picked up by my private cars and flown to my jet. We'll be having the reunion on my island. Your island, she repeated, her eyes wide. In the Caribbean, I said, a smile playing on my lips. I bought it last year when I closed my first billion-dollar deal. I turned to face her. And Mom, this time, I won't be the one sitting quietly while everyone brags about their successes. This time, I have some things to say. She stood, smoothing her skirt with shaking hands. Your father, when he sees all this, when he realizes, her voice trailed off. He'll finally have to admit that his little girl, playing with computer pictures, built something bigger than his entire family legacy I finished for her. I smiled, a quiet, confident smile. And that's just the beginning. I walked her to the elevator, but before she stepped in, I added one last thing. Oh, and Mom? That Bentley you've been dreaming about, the one Dad says is too expensive? I bought 3 last month. Just because I could. The elevator doors closed on her shocked face. As soon as she was gone, I called my assistant. Sarah, is everything ready for the reunion? Yes, Miss Sullivan, she replied. The island staff is prepared. The documentation packages have been assembled for each family member, detailing every time they dismissed your investment opportunities and what those shares would be worth today. The video presentation of your success timeline is ready as well. Perfect, I said, picking up my phone and finally replying to the family group chat with a single message, looking forward to seeing everyone at the reunion. Dress appropriately for a private island. Transportation will be provided. Then I opened my laptop to check the market. The Forbes article had sent my company's stock soaring, adding another $1 billion to my net worth before breakfast. I thought about my father, probably sitting in his office right now, trying to comprehend how his failing daughter had quietly become one of the richest people in the country. I thought about Olivia, who loved to brag about her 6-figure salary and her vacation home in the Hamptons, realizing I could buy her entire life with what I earned in interest each day. The reunion was going to be interesting, very interesting indeed. My phone buzzed again, another message from my father. We need to meet before the reunion. Family matters should be discussed privately. I typed back, everything will be discussed at the reunion, Dad. After all, isn't that what family reunions are for? Sharing our successes. Then I called Sarah again. Contact the design team. I want the island's helipad repainted before the reunion. Make sure my name is visible from the air when they land. Already done, Miss Sullivan, she replied. Anything else? I thought about 15 years of condescension, of pity, of being treated like the family failure. Yes, I said. Make sure the Forbes article is framed and hanging in every room of the island resort. I want it to be the first thing they see, no matter where they turn. As I hung up, I caught my reflection in the window, successful, powerful, and finally ready to show my family exactly who I'd become while they were busy doubting me. The day of the Sullivan family reunion dawned clear and bright, the Caribbean sun casting a golden glow over the horizon. I stood on the tarmac of my private airfield, watching as 3 Rolls-Royces approached in perfect formation. My family had arrived. The cars stopped and the doors opened. First came my father, his usual commanding presence somehow diminished, as if the weight of the truth had already begun to sink in. My mother followed, still looking shaken from our meeting 2 days ago. Marcus, Olivia, and various aunts, uncles, and cousins spilled out after them, their expressions ranging from stunned shock to barely concealed resentment. And there, front and center, sat my gleaming private jet, Sullivan Digital Empire emblazoned on its side in elegant, unmistakable lettering. "Welcome, everyone," I said, my voice carrying across the tarmac with calm authority. "I trust the ride was comfortable?" "Sophia," my father stepped forward, trying to reclaim his authoritative tone, "this is unnecessary. We could have had a perfectly good reunion at the resort." I smiled, unfazed. "The resort was too public, Dad. Besides, I think it's time for some real family bonding on my island." "Your island?" Olivia muttered, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. "Of course you have an island." The flight was interesting, to say the least. As my family members settled into the luxurious cabin, their eyes darted everywhere, taking in the opulent details, the solid gold fixtures, the rare art pieces, the vintage champagne served by my immaculately trained staff. Is that a real Picasso?" Aunt Patricia whispered, staring at the artwork mounted on the cabin wall. "Yes," I replied casually. "I bought it last year, along with a few others." My father cleared his throat, his discomfort palpable. "Sophia, perhaps we should discuss." "We'll discuss everything when we land, Dad," I interrupted smoothly. "For now, enjoy the flight. The champagne is particularly good, cost more than your company's quarterly profits." He flinched, and I let the moment linger. Good. 2 hours later, we began our descent. Through the windows, my private island came into view, 300 acres of tropical paradise, with a state-of-the-art resort complex at its center. And there, visible from the air, just as I'd planned, was my name in letters large enough to be seen from space, Sophia Sullivan. As we landed, I heard Olivia gasp. The helipad was surrounded by massive screens displaying my most successful NFT collections, each with their sale prices prominently displayed, millions upon millions of dollars in digital art, projected for all to see. "Welcome to Sullivan Island," I announced as we disembarked, my voice ringing with quiet pride. "My own little piece of paradise." "Little?" Marcus choked out, his eyes wide as he took in the resort complex sprawling before us, a masterpiece of modern architecture seamlessly blended with the natural beauty of the island. "Everyone's rooms have been assigned," I continued, gesturing toward the resort. "You'll find some reading material waiting for you. I suggest you review it before dinner." The reading material was carefully curated for each family member. For my father, documentation of every investment opportunity of mine he'd dismissed, complete with current valuations. For Olivia, a comparison of her annual salary versus what I earned in interest each day. For Marcus, details of how his firm had lost millions by refusing to work with my company. I gave them an hour to settle in and digest the information, then had them summoned to the main dining room. The dining room was a masterpiece of design, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, a massive table dominating the space, each place setting probably worth more than most people's cars. And on every wall, that Forbes article, beautifully framed, a constant reminder of the truth. My family filed in slowly, looking shell-shocked. They'd changed for dinner, but even their expensive clothes seemed inadequate in these surroundings. "Please sit," I said, gesturing to the table. "We have a lot to discuss." "Sophia," my father began as soon as everyone was seated, "I think I speak for everyone when I say we're surprised." "Surprised?" I laughed softly, the sound carrying a hint of steel. "That's an interesting word choice. Not angry that I deceived you. Not hurt that I hid my success. Just surprised." "We didn't know," my mother said quietly, her voice trembling. "You didn't want to know," I corrected, my gaze steady. "Every time I tried to tell you about my work, you changed the subject. Every time I offered investment opportunities, you dismissed them. You were so convinced I was failing that you couldn't see my success, even when it was right in front of you." "But the apartment," Olivia interjected, her voice defensive, "the old car, all those times you let me pay for dinner because you thought I couldn't afford it," I finished for her, my tone sharp. "Did you enjoy that, Olivia? Playing the successful sister, making sure everyone knew you were helping out poor, struggling Sophia." She had the grace to look ashamed, her cheeks flushing. "Let me show you something," I said, pressing a button. Screens descended from the ceiling, displaying a timeline of my success alongside their dismissive comments over the years. 2008. Digital art isn't real art, Dad said. My first collection sells for $50,000. 2010. When are you going to get a real job, Mom? Company valuation hits $10 million. 2015. At least I can afford to help my sister out, Olivia. Net worth passes $500 million. 2020. We don't invest in internet pictures, Dad's firm. Company valuation reaches $1 billion. I paused, letting the weight of the timeline sink in. Every doubt, every dismissal, every condescending comment, I said quietly, I remembered them all. And with each one, I built something bigger. Why? My father's voice cracked, his usual confidence gone. Why hide it? Because you needed to learn something, I said, my voice steady. All of you did. Success doesn't look just one way. Innovation doesn't follow your predetermined path. And sometimes, the child you wrote off as a failure might just be the one who succeeds beyond your wildest dreams. I stood, walking to the window, the ocean stretching endlessly before me. Do you know what the hardest part was? Not the secrecy, not pretending to struggle. It was watching you all celebrate mediocrity while dismissing true innovation. Mediocrity. Marcus bristled, his voice sharp. Yes, mediocrity, I said, turning to him. You followed Dad's safe path, Marcus. Got the job he wanted you to get, made the safe investments. And you, I turned to Olivia, you bragged about your six-figure salary while I was making that much in minutes. That's enough, my father said, standing, his voice shaking with anger. You've made your point. We were wrong. Is that what you want to hear? No, Dad, I said, my voice calm but unyielding. What I want is for you to understand, really understand. This, I gestured to the luxury around us, isn't about money. It's about vision. The vision you couldn't see because you were too busy clinging to the past. I pressed another button and new images appeared on the screens. My latest project, a revolutionary platform that would transform how digital art was created, bought, and sold. This launches next month, I said. Conservative estimates put its value at $10 billion. I'm showing you this because, for once, I want you to see what I'm building before it happens. No more dismissing it. No more doubting. The room fell silent as they absorbed the implications. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice soft. We're proud of you, Sophia. We should have been proud all along. Thank you, Mom, I said, my tone softening. But I didn't do this for your pride. I did it because it was my dream, my vision. And now, I smiled, it's my empire. So, what happens now? Marcus asked, his voice cautious. Now, I said, raising my glass, we have dinner as a family. But this time, we'll do it my way. No more pretending, no more hiding. And tomorrow, we'll tour the island, and I'll show you exactly what your daughter, sister, and niece has built while you weren't paying attention. They raised their glasses, looking somewhat dazed, their expressions a mix of awe and unease. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of gourmet food, fine wine, and gradually thawing conversations. My family was beginning to really see me for the first time in 15 years. As they retired to their rooms that night, I stayed in the dining room, looking out at the moonlit ocean, its waves whispering secrets of their own. My assistant, Sarah, appeared at my side. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. The big reveal? I thought about the looks on their faces, the shock, the realization, the gradual understanding. Yes, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. But not for the reasons I expected. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about finally being free to be completely myself. And tomorrow? She asked. Tomorrow, I said, my eyes gleaming, we show them the future. Their safe, predictable world of traditional investments and conventional success is over. It's time for them to understand that the daughter they wrote off as a dreamer wasn't just dreaming. She was building a new world while they weren't looking. Later that night, I found a note slipped under my door, written in my father's unmistakable handwriting. I was wrong, it read, not just about the business, but about everything. You didn't just succeed, you revolutionized an entire industry. I'm sorry I couldn't see it sooner. Dad. I placed the note in a frame, right next to the receipt for my first NFT sale, $50,000, a reminder of where I started and how far I'd come. The next morning, as I watched my family gather for breakfast, their attitudes noticeably softened. I realized something profound. Success isn't just about proving others wrong. Sometimes it's about proving yourself right. And sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in the grand reveal of your achievements, but in the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you built something extraordinary while everyone else was busy doubting you. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Sullivan Digital Empire announces revolutionary new platform. The future was calling, and this time, my family would watch it unfold in real time. No more hiding. No more pretending. Just me, Sophia Sullivan, and the empire I'd built from the ground up, ready to take on the world and show my family exactly what I was capable of. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.